Salut tout le monde! Thanks for coming to this lesson with me, Jennifer, your French teacher in the south of France. In this lesson, I am going to talk to you about adverbs. First of all, what's the difference between an adverb and an adjective? What are some of the most common adverbs in French? And how do you form adverbs from adjectives? I'll take you through lots of examples, writing them all out for you, and at the end of the video, you'll even have an exercise or two that you can complete by yourself and see how you're doing. As usual, I've made you a Quizlet study set so that you can practice and master everything that you learn in this lesson. Just follow the link down in the video description and you can join my YouTube French class. Alright, so let's get right to it. First of all, what is an adverb? What's the difference between an adverb and an adjective? Alright, so to start out with, adverbs answer the question quand or when. Now, what's the difference between an adverb and an adjective? Adjectives are used to describe. So you may have seen some of these most common adverbs, and maybe you didn't know that they were actually an adverb, but notice that they all answer the question quand or when. So bientôt is soon, déjà, already, enfin is finally or last, ensuite is next or then, hier is yesterday, tard is late, and tôt is early. Now, of course, this is not a complete list. These are just some of the most common ones. Did any of those look familiar? I'll bet you that they did, and if not, then you can start practicing using them right away, and they'll make what you have to say in French much more interesting. Now, let's look at some other kinds of adverbs. Adverbs can also answer the question où, which means where. Ici, here, là, there, là-bas, over there, partout, everywhere, quelque part, somewhere. Adverbs also answer the question à quelle fréquence, which means how often. Toujours, always, trop, too, très, very, souvent, often, rarement, rarely, and parfois, sometimes. Other kinds of adverbs answer the question jusqu'à quel point, to what degree. Assez, enough, beaucoup, a lot, peu, little. And many adverbs answer the question comment, which means how. So the largest group of adverbs actually are formed from adjectives. Think about it. In English, if you have an adjective like slow, and you want to turn it into an adverb, you add ly to the end of it and it becomes slowly. You'll notice when I'm about to take you through in the la formation des adverbes that there is something that works a lot like ly in English, and that's ment. However, it doesn't work the same across the board, so pay close attention to the different kinds of adjectives that I'm going to show you and what you need to do to transform them into adverbs and use them correctly. Right, so la formation des adverbes. Most commonly, as I mentioned, all you have to do is add ment to the feminine form of the adjective that you want to turn into an adverb. So this is going to be very important because you're going to have to take the masculine form of the adjective and change it, first of all, into the feminine form. Let's look at some examples. If you have a masculine adjective like lent, which means slow, first we're going to make it into the feminine form, which is lente. All we had to do was add an e to the end of it. After we do that, you just add ment, and you have lentement, which means slowly. So the ment works a lot like ly in English. The next adjective, franc, is a good example of the adjective that has to make a little bit more of a change to turn it into the feminine form. So franc becomes franche when it's feminine. And as the adverb, it's franchement, frankly. Parfait, parfaite, parfaitement, perfectly. Particulier, particulière, particulièrement, particularly. Total, total, totalement, totally. Partiel, partiel, partiellement, partially. Okay, so the vast majority of adverbs are formed just like that, the ones that I just showed you. So there's nothing real tricky except you really have to know the feminine form of the adjective. So if you're ever not sure, then just look it up. There's no harm in that. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through some adverbs that are formed in a little bit of a different way, and there are a few exceptions. Okay, so what about adjectives that end in vowels? If the masculine form of the adjective already ends in a vowel, you don't need to make it feminine before you add the ment. So here are some examples for you. You've all seen vrai. Vrai means real. It also means true. It already ends in a vowel. So rather than adding an e to it, which would be the feminine form, and then adding the ment, we're just going to add an ment to the masculine form, and we get vraiment, which means really. The adjective poli works the same way. Poli, poliment means politely. Okay, so that's just a little exception to remember, and it makes sense since the adjective in the masculine form already ends in a vowel. Now let me show you what you do with adjectives that end in ent or ant. There's a little something different that you have to do. All right, so when the adjective ends in ent, the masculine form of the adjective, for example, prudent, which means careful, in this situation, all you have to do is take off the ent and then you add emment. So prudent becomes prudemment, and it means carefully. Notice that the emment is pronounced prudemment, prudemment. All right, so now let's look and see what happens when you have a masculine form of an adjective ending in ant. For example, élégant, right, means elegant. So in this situation, what you're going to do is take off the ant and add amment. All right, so élégant becomes élégamment, means elegantly. So listen to the way that's pronounced, élégamment, as opposed to prudemment. Do you hear much of a difference? I don't. No, not really. So even though it's emment and this one is amment, they're really pronounced the same way. It's just for the spelling that you have to be careful. Okay, now I have just a little handful of exceptions, true exceptions to show you, and then we'll be done and we can practice a little bit. Okay, so as promised, a handful of adjectives change E to E with accent aigu when forming the adverb. So there's a list of them, but honestly, most of them that work like this are quite literary. These are the two that I can think of that are really used on a daily basis. So énorme, which means enormous, becomes énormément. Notice how the final E on énorme changes to an E with an accent aigu in the adverbial form. It does change the way that it's pronounced. Énormément. Énormément means enormously. And profonde. Profonde becomes profondément. Profoundly. And one more exception. This one is just really strange. So gentil means nice, right? And the feminine form of gentil is gentille with two L's and an E on the end. But look at the adverbial form. You drop the L all together and it becomes gentiment, which means nicely. Okay, so that's it for today's lesson. Now I'm going to take you through a couple of exercises and see how you do forming adverbs from the adjective form. Remember all of the rules, all right? And if you need to, then go back and look through the video from the very beginning because I'm going to mix it up in the exercises that follow. Now, if you need a little bit of time to figure these out with a pen and paper, make sure that you put the video on pause because I'm going to go pretty much directly to the answers. D'accord? Okay, so transform the following adjectives into adverbs. Remember to press pause if you need some time. Direct, apparent, constant, absolu, gentil. I'm going to give you a few seconds in case you forgot to press pause. Here come the answers. All right, so here are your adjective forms, and here are les réponses. So direct, you have to change it to the feminine form right here, direct, and then you add ment to it. That's because that is an adjective that does not end in a vowel in the masculine form. So we have to make it feminine before we add the ment. So directement, directly. Apparent. Now that ends in ENT. So remember, we're going to take off the ENT and we're going to add EMMENT. Apparent becomes apparemment, apparently. Constant, take off the ANT, add AMMENT. Constant, constamment, constantly. Absolu. So this one, in its masculine form, already ends in a vowel. So all we have to do is stick MENT on there, and we have our verb. Absolu becomes absolument, absolutely. And gentil, there it is. Gentil becomes gentiment, nicely, and it's quite irregular. Okay, so if you're ready, I'm going to give you one more little set of exercises. Here we go. Transform the following adjectives into adverbs, and go on and press pause now if you need some time. Okay, voilà les réponses. So récent becomes récemment. See, it ends in ENT. Replace it with EMMENT. Récemment, recently. Brillant, brillamment, brilliantly. Probable, probablement, probably. That's one of those that already ends in an E in its masculine form as an adjective. Léger, when you change léger into its feminine form, it becomes légère. So don't forget that your second E takes an accent grave in the feminine form of léger, and you add an E to the end. So léger becomes légèrement, lightly. Énorme becomes énormément, which means enormously. So that's one of those where the final E on énorme actually takes an accent aigu in the adverbial form. So I hope that this lesson on adverbs and the formation of adverbs in French has helped you. The next video is going to be about how to compare using adverbs. And at that point, I'll talk about the adverb bien, which means well as its comparative form, mieux. And maybe you've seen that around. All right, so as usual, if you are interested in taking private lessons with me on Skype, then just visit the Love Learning Languages website, and you see it right there. I'll also put a link down at the bottom of the screen. And here's some more information about my YouTube French class on Quizlet. If you're not familiar with Quizlet, why don't you just go over there and sign up and see what it's about. You can follow the link that's down in the video description. I'm starting to make Quizlet study sets for all of the videos that I put out on YouTube to help you practice and master everything that you learn in my French lesson. Okay, merci beaucoup à tous, and I'll see you very soon next time. Come visit us over on the Facebook page. Be happy to see you there. Merci, au revoir.